Good morning, all. Every thought you produce, anything you say, any action you do, it bears your signature. Apting to the quote, here we have Mr. Shivakumar, the founder of Wings for Talent, having passed out of BITS Pilani in 2008. He joined Senita Systems as the third member globally, which is acquired by Seina Corporation. With 9 years of startup experience, he ventured into the startup world with a demonstrated history of working in IT and service industry. Wings for Talent is an artificial intelligence and machine learning based online screening and assessment platform for IT companies that screens the profile based on job requirements. Back in April 2018, Wings for Talent was incorporated with a vision to accumulate and automate the recruitment process. However, the founders out much more challenging and pressing issues that is gaining a lot of attention globally, that is automation on human expression. On March 2020, that is incubated with NASCOM IIM Bangalore NSRCEL. It was awarded one of the prestigious grants competition elevated call to organized by Startup Karnataka with the highest score. We are very glad to have you here, sir. We welcome you once again and wishing you all success in future on behalf of Jansen's family.
Thanks for the intro. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me in this webinar. And I'm Shivakumar, and there's a quick intro about me which was given by Shushma. Thanks for it. And let me just give a quick brief. Since we are talking more about AI and machine learning today, I would also like to talk a bit about what we are into. So that can give you a good idea about where artificial intelligence is heading at this point of time. We have a couple of solutions which is called Mu Express and Recru Assist. Mu Express is something which plays around with computer vision. What we try to do here is we try to capture genuine human emotions. When I say genuine human emotions, let's take a example. When you people as students attend an interview or when you're going to an exam, the innate emotion most of the cases is a bit of fear or a bit of anxiety kind of a thing. But still, in an interview, you can't show your fear to your interviewer. So it's more of a you would like to put your best face forward, something very pleasant. In this case, if you look at it, the actual emotion that you're going through is fear, even though you show something else outside. So this is what the system is capable of identifying. What is the actual emotion that an individual is going through? So we have multiple applications in the field of healthcare, which is more related to mental illness, where we can help in counseling and things like that. The system can help in that. National security as a lie detector, and also in the field of marketing and sales while designing advertisements and like things like that. So this is a project that was backed by the Indian government, especially the Karnataka government, and it's totally funded by them. And this next one is the Recru Assist. This is a fully automated solution which can conduct an interview without any human intervention. So all the system needs is a job description. Once the system has the job description, it can go and fetch the resumes from multiple portals. It can arrange for an interview. It can conduct the interview also. At the end of the day, what it does is it gives a report to the recruiter in the end saying, these are the top performers. Would you like to go with them? So that is the other solution that we have. So predominantly, we work in the artificial intelligence and machine learning field. All right. So my intro is pretty much covered. So let's just jump into the topic in itself. So what is AI? AI may sound probably a little difficult theoretically. So what it actually means is we are trying to educate a computer system to solve a day-to-day issue, a simple day-to-day issue which needs a human intelligence. So that can be as simple as like having the attendance done, which is prevalent almost everywhere. They use facial recognition for the attendance system and things like that. So we can relate this to a very classic situation when we as a kid, when we were trying to learn alphabets, what our teachers and parents did was they used to show us some images and then say A for apple, B for ball, and things like that. So when we start learning this over a period of time, we become more and more confident. So with that confidence, we can express ourselves in a pretty decent or better way. That's exactly what an AI system does. what it does is, as and when we feed more and more data which is relevant to what it's trying to solve, the system becomes more confident and its accuracy level increases, and that's how AI works. This is what AI is actually. Let me move on to the next topic. Okay, so there are three broad categories of AI. The first one is the artificial narrow intelligence. This is what is available at this point of time across the globe. This is more of a machine learning thing where it can solve only a single problem. The system can solve only one problem. Like I said, it's an attendance system, or it can be a system that monitors human body temperature. In this COVID situation, there are multiple solutions that was built around it. Something like social distancing. These are all meant to solve a particular problem, and they don't have extraordinary intelligence, and still they are not any better than a human intelligence. So some of the examples which you guys might be pretty, familiar about is Alexa, Siri, and Cortana is something similar to. What we have next is artificial general intelligence. So this you can compare to a human brain. As a human brain, you can make independent decisions. You can also make sense of multiple things. But that is something where AI is not at this point of time. This is just a theoretical concept still. There are companies which are trying to work on it. I don't know if you guys have heard about something called Sophia. Sophia is a robot that was built around the Middle East area, where it's capable of answering human questions, acting more like a human, but still even that is not anywhere close to AGI. It still works on artificial narrow intelligence only. So that having been said, artificial intelligence is not any better than a human brain, and that's exactly why it cannot take or replace human beings at this point of time. And the last part is the artificial super intelligence, which is way better than human brain. So let's take a simple example. A human being can be pretty good at a particular field. Let's say Sachin Tendulkar. He is pretty good at cricketing. He may not be any good at football, or he may not be any good at mathematics or anything else. So what this says is, a human brain can be good at a particular or be excellent at a particular field and not in all the fields. But what this artificial super intelligence is capable of is it's like jack of all trades. It can do everything in a very precise and proper manner. So this is again a very theoretical concept. This is an evolution of AGI. These are all the things the current research teams are working on across the globe. So to quickly depict in a funny note, I can say we can compare the last one, stage 3 of artificial intelligence, to this Terminator in this Terminator movie. This robo in the movie, if you guys have seen, is capable of doing almost everything. It has the intelligence to, get everything in place the right way. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about some of the major divisions with respect to artificial intelligence. So let's start with something like a expert system. Who do we call an expert? Let's take again a classic example of cricket. We have this expert opinion where retired cricketers talk a lot about how this pitch is going to be, how this match is going to turn out, and they give a lot of insights about the match. How do they do it? Because they are experts in this field. They have seen a lot of examples, lot of situations, lot of pitches and whatnot. They know how the teams work. So these guys are considered as experts because they have that knowledge in them and they can give those suggestions. So that is exactly what expert system in artificial intelligence is. These systems are trained based on expert knowledge, a lot of data which has high information about that particular field is available with the system. So it can give very, very intelligent and precise suggestions to the user. There are a lot of very good solutions in the field of healthcare. One of it is called Mycin. What is Mycin? That it's MYCIN. What it does is it's capable of recommending drugs, that is medicines, to the patients based on the infection. So that is one thing. And there's something called CADET. It's capable of identifying cancer in human beings at a very early stage. These are all very, very intelligent system, and it's also very useful for humankind because it's going to solve a lot of health related issues. Robotics is something which is becoming popular again. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about something called Boston Robotics. What these guys do is they make a dog-like robots which behaves exactly like dogs, which can be used in the future in case of military, in case of surveillance, or even in case of security at individual level, home kind of a thing. So that is again expert system, and expert system is considered as one of the most complex domains of artificial intelligence at this point of time, because of the basic thing where the data that has to be fed to the system has to be very high level, very intelligent and very good. For instance, if you have heard about the Sophia thing, when one of the questions were asked, it gave a very controversial answer. It would like to eradicate the humankind or something of that sort. The reason behind that was Sophia was trained based on data that was collected on websites like Reddit and more. Reddit, these are all places where people make a lot of conversations. So the system was learning how to converse with each other based on these conversations, and people tend to have negative, like responses on the web. So we should be very careful when building an expert system what kind of data we use. That actually applies across artificial intelligence thing. It's exactly like what a parent teaches the kids. When the kids are taught with the good values, the kid grows to be a good person. That applies for artificial intelligence too. Now let's go to the speech part. So there are a couple of things. One is speech to text. This is like when somebody is talking, let's say I'm giving you a presentation now. Whatever I'm talking, it can be converted into subtitles real time. So if you guys have seen YouTube videos, there's something called a closed caption. So whatever the speaker on the video is talking, that gets converted into subtitles and it shows in real time below. I'm not sure if you guys have tried it. If you guys have not tried it, I would recommend you guys to go to YouTube and click on a video and enable that closed caption thing. It just shows real time captions below, subtitles on the screen. The next thing is text to speech. This is any IVR call or any, let's say, customer call center you guys are calling. Let's say the agent is very busy. During that time, you'll hear some background voice saying, okay, there are these plans that's available. Your call is very important to us. We value your call and things like that. How does this happen? They don't really go and search for an individual who has the pleasant voice and gives all these statements. What they do is there is a system where you just have to enter what you want to say, and the system converts it into a very pleasant voice. So that's the text to speech part. So Google is doing a lot of interesting things in this. Even NVIDIA is doing a lot of good work in this. NVIDIA especially, what they're doing is they're doing speech to text. Any company, if you take at this point of time, they have centers across the globe. Let's say there is somebody in the US, somebody in India, and somebody in Japan also, and somebody in China too. So India being predominantly comfortable with English, they're okay. But if you see Chinese and Japanese, they do have issues with English. So what happens when a person from US has to communicate with the Chinese or the Japanese? What basically happens is there is a big communication gap. So in these kind of live sessions, what they do is, let's say the Chinese person or the Japanese person is talking or conversing in his own native language. The system converts whatever this person is talking into real-time subtitles. So the person in US can read it, or the person in India can read it and then understand what this person is talking. So that makes that actually like bridges the communication gap between these culturally and language-based differences, making work more efficient. So this is done by NVIDIA. It's called for the lack of I don't exactly remember the name now. This is a new thing that has been done, which they do it on the card itself, the graphic card that they use. On that itself, they have done it. This is a recent development in the field of speech to text. And then now let's go to the vision part. Considering Wings for Talent is also working on the vision part, this is again a very nice segment to know about. One of the major things, or something very common that you guys see these days, is the self-driving cars. So you would have seen videos where you see cars are being boxed, a video where you see boxes around the car, cars are being identified, humans walking are being identified. So this is the image recognition part. Trying to identify a cat from a dog, trying to identify humans on a frame. So this is more of the image recognition thing. And now coming to machine vision, what does this do? So in the manufacturing segment, if you see, whenever a product is developed, it has to be quality assured. So at the end of the day, let's say we manufacture some product. It can be anything. It can be as simple as a cloth or as complex as a machine, a CNC machine or something. So whenever this is done, this has to go through a quality assurance check. This can be done by machine vision. So it can do it at a very, very high accuracy. When we train the system with the right products, we say this is how the right product should look. This is the, like probably the strength of the thread. This is how it should be. This is how the color should be. This is how the pattern should be. If the system is trained to see all this, through vision, it can find out and then check if this product is a pass or a fail. So this way, quality assurance is totally taken care of. So that is the machine vision part. Machine learning is something we'll discuss in depth in the next slide. I'll put it on hold at this point of time. Now let's get back to the natural language processing. So there are multiple things. When we go to Amazon, we'll have this chat bot where the customer care support is just a chat where we ask it a basic set of questions. Only if it's not able to answer the question, it's going to redirect you to an individual who's a human who's going to help you with the thing. So that is also part of natural language processing only. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this Grammarly, which is making a lot of ingrowns. So if you have not tried it, again, try it on your web browser. It's called Grammarly. Try installing it. It's a plugin on any of the browsers. Once you install it, wherever you start typing, any text area you start typing, it will tell you, give you suggestions. It will say, okay, this sentence, English sentence is not formed properly. You should probably try using this. Your spelling for this particular word is wrong. It gives a lot of nice suggestions. So, like typing an English sentence is not complex anymore with this solution. It's open source again. You can try this Grammarly on your browsers. And there is also something called as natural language generation, which I'll talk about in the next coming slides, which are also some interesting technologies that's coming up these days. So let me quickly move on to the next slide. So I was talking about machine learning. So there are three different types of machine learning: the supervised, unsupervised, and responsive. Responsive is something that's making a lot of noise at this point of time. So let's talk about what is supervised. Supervised is something, the classic example, when we feed an image to the system should be able to tell what kind of an image is it. Is it a cat? Is it a dog? Is it a tiger or cheetah, whatever? It should be able to find out what animal it is, let's say. So how do we train the system? We give data to the system saying a bunch of pictures, we send it to the system and then say, this is the cat's picture. Another set of pictures and say, this is dog's picture. So we label these and then tell them, this is what it is. What the system does or the algorithm does is, it takes key features out of it. How is a cat different from a dog? Probably the ear, the eyes, the nose. These are all the things the system will take it out and then store it as feature set. And this is what we call it as model. When a new image comes into the system, it compares it against this model that it has created and then says, okay, I'm confident that this particular image is cat and I'm probably 60%, 70% confident this is a cat. That's what the system says. It gives you an accuracy rate, probably 60%, 70%, 80%. And you can make this accuracy rate greater by giving it more and more data of cat, more data of dog in different positions, different angles. That's what supervised thing is all about. Face detection is also based on that. These days, if you see, most of the phones have that face unlock thing. So how does it find out that your face is on the screen? Or for that matter, if a face is available on the screen, it's based on this kind of a training only. You can try this example. Certain phones is not developed to such an extent where it can differentiate between a photo to your own face. So what you can try is, you can say, let's say you have a phone which has face recognition. You can just show your photo in front of it. It will still unlock. That's because certain phones do not still have the intelligence, or they don't use that kind of algorithm where unlock should happen only when a 3D real face is in front of the camera. So this is again something you guys can try, an exercise you can try and see. Just place a photo of the person to whom the phone belongs to. It will still unlock. Then let's talk about the unsupervised data. So I'm sure we are all using Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. So before we start an account, what does the system ask you, or the website ask you? It asks you what's your name, which is of less relevance, of course. It asks you what is your gender, what is your age, date of birth, where are you from, what are your interests, where do you work, or what do you do. So what do they do with all this data is something that relate to unsupervised data. If you see in Facebook, Instagram, there are a lot of ads, and these ads reach you based on your age group and things like that. How they basically run it is, let's say there is a trendy clothing company that is there now, like the Virat Kohli's company, the wrong company, let's say. So when they start their initial marketing, they would have advertised across age groups. So after that, they see what kind of a conversion is there. They would have probably got a cluster, meaning a lot of buyers in the city area, or a lot of buyers in a particular age group, let's say 18 to 25 or 18 to 26. So what does this mean? The system was able to automatically cluster these data based on the some parameters. It can be maximum sales or maximum views, maximum interest, any of this. So it clusters. Once this cluster is established, we relate this data to the age, to the location, and these kind of stuff. So this is called unsupervised, where we don't tell the system what kind of data we are giving it. It just groups it based on some relation and gives it to us, and we make sense out of it. So this is very helpful in marketing campaigns, sales campaigns, increasing the revenue of a company. That is unsupervised part. Now let's come to this interesting responsive part of it. This is the self-driving car. How this works is, before a self-driving car hits the road, when it starts riding on the road, if you see, there are a lot of tests happening, at least in the Western countries, where Uber is running on the road, self-driving cars. They say it has hit a person, it has created chaos in the, like in checkposts and things like that. So before that, what basically these developers do is, if you have seen computer games, a car racing kind of a thing, they let this algorithm run this car in such kind of an environment. It's a totally simulated environment where the algorithm will ride the car in that particular game, probably, let's say in a game kind of a situation, where it's not supposed to hit other cars, it's not supposed to go out of the road, it's not supposed to hit a human. How does it learn this? Every time it hits another car or another person, it gets a negative reward. When a negative reward is got, what the system does is it again repeats the action and avoids that negative reward action, which is probably hitting a car or hitting a person or hitting a railing. So it avoids the action next time and it tries something new, which is probably not hitting anything. So let's say it has cleared that particular location. That means it's a positive reward. The system gets a positive reward. So whatever positive reward the system gets, it gets stored in its model. So that's what it does in real time. Once the system is matured this way in their simulation or in their gaming environment, they put it in real time use. They don't directly put it in real time use and start giving the system all these situations, which is going to be very, very risky for the general public. And there's also another interesting thing that's happening, because almost all car manufacturers are getting into this self-driven cars. So what has happened is, in South Korea, there is this company. What they do is, they have just created a huge city, which is actually not occupied by real people. What they have done is, they have created a city or town where they have created models of car everywhere. This is in real. They have cars every here and there. They also have people, which is more like a board kind of thing, model of board. It can be a mannequin also. So they have kept humans here and there on the road. They have the level crossing. They have the signals. So what they have done is, they have created a model township. So whichever car company is ready to test their car, they can directly put it in this particular locality and test their car, instead of risking the general public. They don't really have to put it in a place where people live, where people drive on a day-to-day basis. So this is an ancillary project which is done by South Korea and by a particular company, and it's gaining a lot of attention, which is actually a very good solution to test each of these self-driven cars. All right. Let's see some of the segments where AI has made a lot of impact. The self-driving car, which we were talking about at this point, and the next is security. Security is like more of antivirus thing. Almost all antivirus at this point use some level of machine learning. One of the classic case of security issues, we call it as DDoS. I don't know if you guys are used to that, watching live scores on Cricinfo and CricBus and things like that. So when we were using it probably around R20s and 24s, probably what was happening was these servers used to crash all of a sudden and we'll not be able to see the score anymore. The reason was there are these people who used to send a lot of data. See, basically the data are exchanged over the internet in terms of packets. So what these third-party people, these hackers, so-called hackers do is they send a lot of packets to this Cricinfo IP. They send irrelevant packets. What happens to the server? The server will not be able to handle so much traffic. So what happens? The system starts crashing all of a sudden. As a result of which, people who genuinely want to use the site will not be able to use it anymore. So to avoid this, we have these. This is one of a classic situation. We have machine learning algorithm which finds out these abnormal set of packets that's reaching the server. Once it finds out these abnormal packet, it blocks those IP address. It will not allow this IP address to send these information anymore. This is also something classic in some of the public chat also. If you see, you will not be able to chat continuously. You will not be able to send messages in a very frequent way. You cannot send more than 3-4 messages within a stipulated point of time. All this is used with certain amount of intelligence to make sure security is maintained. Security also means personal security, where on the internet many people get abused. That is something that can be solved also with this. One of the Indians in US has developed a security system where internet abuse can be stopped. So what that system basically does is, when a person chooses to enter something abusive, the system, before you can send that message, the system asks you, would you like to send this? This sounds abusive. Would you like to use an alternative, which is this? So that is something that was developed by one of the Indian founders in US. So that's with respect to security. And the shopping. Yeah. This is again something very interesting with this current generation. I'm sure you guys use Amazon, Flipkart and all that. So when you buy a particular product and when you start scrolling down, you will see people who bought this also bought this. That kind of a suggestion comes up. So let's say you have bought a computer or a laptop. What a laptop needs, probably a laptop bag or something relevant to it. So generally, this kind of a suggestion also helps the buyer to complete their purchase and also helps the seller to improve their purchase. So these kind of suggestion that comes again from machine learning, which looks into the purchase patterns of multiple people and gives this kind of a suggestion. Now let's get into the manufacturing sector. So these days, if you see, the manufacturing process is totally automated end to end. A car can be manufactured from a basic platform to a completed car in the end. So all this is done because of automation, which again involves a bit of machine learning and AI there. Healthcare is making a lot of noise now, considering the pandemic also. So if you see, there are multiple solutions which is capable of identifying the health of the individual's health, heart health, sleeping pattern, lot of things. One interesting project that was released recently is Google worked with Shankara Nethrali of India. So what they basically did was, Shankara Nethrali of course deals with a lot of eye related stuff. What they basically did is they found some pattern on eye. Using this eye pattern, they're capable of telling what is the like health condition of an individual's heart, what kind of a issue they can face in the future, and it can also talk about cataract issues of individuals. So that is something interesting that came out of the Indian ecosystem, which was done with Google. There are multiple kinds of solutions. Even our Mu Express has a solution where we are capable of identifying the pulse rate of an individual using a webcam. So this is non-invasive, and you don't even have to use any device. You can pretty much sit at your house. If you have a webcam, the webcam will be able to tell you what is your pulse rate, your heart rate. So what we do basically here is every image that reaches a system will have three channels, which is the red, the blue, and the green. So we call it the RGB. Three channels is what defines the coloration of any image. So we use this in combination with certain points on face, the forehead, the cheeks, and all that. We see how the colors change, these RGB pattern change, and then we tell the pulse rate of an individual. So where we use this pulse rate is when a person is going through a lot of anxiety or probably anger, or when a person is happy, their heart rate changes. So we use this in combination with their facial expression and things like that to tell what is their genuine emotion. So these are some advancements in the healthcare system. Agriculture is really interesting, because if you look at Israel, you just have to look at what these guys are doing in Israel with respect to artificial intelligence in agriculture. So what they do is these people generally have drones. These drones also carry a nice camera to it. Let's say a person has acres and acres of plantation. It's very difficult to go individually and monitor each of these crops and then see if there is a problem. And those are countries where you don't have a lot of people to do this kind of work. It's not a population rich country. By population, they're not too great. So what they do is they let these drones do a surveillance of the entire plantation. It takes the videos and pictures and comes back to the system and feeds all these videos and pictures to the system. What the system does is it starts analyzing these crops. It checks the color of the leaves. It checks if there are some insects on the leaf. It takes all this into account and then says, okay, this particular part of the field is infected by a particular pest, so it needs a pesticide. Or this side is fertile, this side needs some more fertilizers. These are the feedback that the system gives. Once the feedback is given, the drones are capable of throwing these pesticides, these fertilizers in the right location. So that is the advancement Israel has done in the field of agriculture using AI and ML. Military, again, there are a lot of solutions. There are simulators where the soldiers can train themselves. There are these drones, unmanned drones, which can do surveillance, which is becoming very common now. You hear a Pakistan drone entered Punjab and the Indian team, the soldiers shot it down, or the Indian drone went across and then they did a bombing. US does most of these things. So these are unmanned drones which is capable of like going into another territory and do the required stuff. There are also unmanned vehicles which can be used in military per se. Satellite images where they try to figure out where the terrorist camp is. They find out activity. So it's very difficult for an individual to check the entire border. Let's say India has a huge border. It's just not possible for us to look at every inch of the border and see if there is somebody who's entering into our country. So what they basically do is the satellite keeps a track of our border and then sees if there is an intrusion, if people are moving in and out. These are all the technologies that makes life very simple for a nation like us. So the security part is taken care that way. Weather is mostly with respect to weather forecast. There is an interesting project that was done by one of my college alumni. The company name is called Pixel. So what they do is they have a matchbox size satellite, and they make a grid of satellites. They make multiple such satellites. What they do is, let's consider our location. Let's say we have Coimbatore, we have Chennai, we have Erode, for instance. There will be matchbox size satellites flying right above these cities in the orbit area. What these satellites will do is they'll monitor individual locations and then say if there is a weather change, and then say what is the weather forecast. All this data by these small satellites will be collected and sent to a mother satellite. This satellite relates all this data and then says whether there can be a storm, whether there can be a natural disaster, are we looking at climate change, these kind of things. So this is very cost effective because they are not really launching a huge satellite. They're only making small satellites. It goes into the orbit and then it starts monitoring individual places, and all this data is collected and sent to one particular location, which can make sense out of all these individual data. So that is something that is happening very interesting in the field of weather with respect to artificial intelligence. All right, let's move on. Some of the hottest trends that is happening in the field of AI technology are follows. Natural language generation. This is something I said I would talk about in the future slides. So what is this natural language generation? Uh, at this point of time, you see there are a lot of breaking news that's happening across India, across the globe, every now and then. So how do we keep track of it as an individual? We don't really go to each of these websites and then take and read it and come back. So there are these things called as automated journalism. What this automated journalism does is, this is again a part of A and ML. What it does is, it starts collecting these important news across the internet, and then it converts it into human readable form. It is capable of writing an article based out of all these newses and give it to us in a very simple format. So we as a reader really need not go to different parts to know what is happening at this point of time. This is called as automated journalism, and it's becoming very popular these days. Next is the speech recognition part. So where do we use speech recognition? So this is again something that is used in, if you have heard of the Siri, this Alexa and things like that. When you say something, let's say, okay, Siri is something which is respect to the iPhone thing. When we ask it, or even Google has something called as Google Assistant. So when we ask what is the weather like today, it is capable of understanding what we are talking, and then it gives an answer back to us. So the system is able to understand what we are talking. So before, if you have to tell a system to do something, we have to sit and code. We write a code and then say print this, do that, which is more of a system language. Now we are able to use human language to interact with the system. This is called speech recognition. That is where the advancement has happened. The next thing is virtual agents. This is again a very, very interesting part. And these are all the chat bots. And also, if you see in Western countries, what is happening now is the call center concept in itself is getting more and more, like automized. What is happening these days is let's say me as a customer is calling a particular call center, and the call doesn't directly connect to the person, to the end individual agent as a human. So what basically happens initially is the system starts, like interacting with you. It asks, let's take an example of Amazon. It asks you, do you have a problem with one of your orders, or do you want to buy a new product, or you want to know about a product? So these are all the basic things probably a customer would like to know. So if you say, yeah, I have a problem with one of my orders, so it asks which order you have placed these recent orders. Out of this, which one is where do you have an issue? So you say, the first product, this is where I have an issue. There is a delay in this thing. So it gives you some kind of feedback. It only takes you to the customer care person only if the system is not able to answer your question. So what is the advantage here? Before, when you call a customer care, you have to wait on the call like forever before you get connected to an agent. So the wait time is just insane. Now, if you see people who have basic doubts, their questions can be easily clarified by the system itself. Only those who have a very specific complex doubt will be connected to the customer care person itself. So that way the wait time is very less, and also the call load on the person who's sitting on the customer care side has reduced a lot. So that way the customer happiness level is also high. The company is also making their solution more optimized, cost effective. So that is the virtual agents thing. Now let's go to the machine learning platforms. So everybody need not be a machine learning expert or an AI expert. So there are a lot of businesses which has insane amount of data. This can be as simple as a clothing company. So we have Saravana stores, let's say Pothys or the Chennai Silks. They sell a lot of clothings. So they should keep a track of when exactly their sales are going high. Of course, it's pretty easy in our ecosystem to say, okay, the sales are too high in the month of Adi or in the month of Diwali. Let's say that's a very simple problem to state. Next thing is what kind of clothes sell a lot, what kind of designs sell a lot, what colors is mostly preferred, what kind of age group likes what. So these kind of things is something which companies like Saravana Store, Chennai Silks, Pothys will not be able to figure it out until you collect all the data and give it. Of course, they have the data and give it to a person who's going to sit on it and identify this. It's very, very difficult to find out, bring all this data together and find out or make a right decision. So what they basically do, they feed all this information into something that is already ready to use. So these machine learning platforms offers you solutions which can be directly used. So what this Pothys or Chennai Silks have to do is they have to give all the data to the system. The system will crunch on it and then say, okay, your top selling design is this, your top selling brand is this, your top selling color is this. So this age group is what comes at this point of your, like this part of the year. So it gives all these kind of recommendations. Once you have these kind of recommendations, the company can cut their cost and invest effectively. So they can also target this crowd very, very specifically. Let's say they have a new design which is of color, let's say orange, and a specific pattern. So they can send a message to those people who prefer this color a lot. This is how this SMS kind of marketing and things like this happen. So machine learning platforms is something that will be developed by tech people like us, and it will be offered to people who are sitting with a lot of data. So the people who have data, they do not actually develop it. So this is again a very, very happening segment that's available now. This is also offered by AWS now, which is the Amazon Web Service, by Google Cloud Platform, GCP, IBM. All these people have solutions of this sort where you really need not have the tech expertise. So the next part is AI optimized hardware. AI in itself came into existence as early as 1930s, 1932-ish kind of thing. So the first thing that was done was something related to pattern recognition. A person came up with a system where he wanted to identify the numbers. Different people write numbers in different way. So he had a system which was capable of identifying what number a person is writing. But that person's biggest challenge was the hardware. The hardware was very expensive those days, and running that kind of a system would mean you have to spend a lot. Instead of doing that, you can have individuals who can look into it and find out. So any software solution will work out only if it can cut the cost. It will not work out if the cost is more. If it can cut the cost, it works out. So that's why it took a lot of time for this AI and ML to become more popular. At this point, if you see, the hardware is just amazing. What NVIDIA did with its GPU, you can run all these models at a very, very faster rate. I don't know if you guys have tried something, tried to run these models at this point. When you get to that point, you will see a difference when you're trying to build AI/ML on an NVIDIA GPU, which is their graphic card, versus running it on the CPU. When you're trying to build something on a CPU, it can take hours together. If you do the same thing on the NVIDIA graphic card, it's just going to take, in terms of minutes, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The same thing on the CPU will take like 3-4 hours maybe. So that is a huge difference. So this is where the hardware has made a lot of changes, and that's also an important segment. And it's mostly NVIDIA which is doing most of these things. And next is Tensor by Google. They're also doing something very relevant, something which supports their TensorFlow ecosystem. And AWS also has AI optimized servers, all this that's coming up. Now, going back to the decision management system, this is something like the expert system that we were talking about. Decision management is something where you have to give the system a lot of relevant data, so the system can give you certain decisions. It can make a call and then say, okay, probably this is what you should try. You should try something of this sort. So that is decision management, which we spoke in expert system well earlier. Deep learning platform is again something where the healthcare system or any of this is deep learning, where a specific field is chosen and a very specific problem is solved. Deep learning would mean we use a lot of neural networks. Neural networks is considered as neurons in our brain. So where we have multiple layers, each layer, when we look at something, our brain processes and then says, okay, this is a tree, this is a bark of a tree, this is a leaf. So we are able to identify all this. Why this happens is we have something called as neurons in our brain. So they have done something similar to it in deep learning platforms where they have neurons at each levels, and each of this communicate with each other and it gives you an end result. So this is probably used in a classification problem or a regression problem. And next thing is the biometrics. Biometrics is more of human and the system interaction. So it can be something like touch recognition, it can be something like speech recognition, something like body language. You have this VR systems, things like that, which brings an interaction between the system and the human through some kind of device, or it can also be a webcam, a non-invasive technology. Also, it can be anything. Um, so you also see something like a robotic surgery things where it uses a lot of sensors and these kind of biometric stuff to conduct it. Robotic process automation is again in the manufacturing segment, where manufacturing of each part of a vehicle is taken care by the robot with the help of the AML. And this applies to simple industries like food and beverages too, where even a chips company is trying to automate everything, right from like chopping the potato to frying the potato at optimal temperature and then packaging it. All of it is can be automated at this point of time. So that's where we are heading with AI and ML. Text analytics and NLP is something we spoke enough about, something like chatbots, converting Google translators, where we can translate English to Tamil, Tamil to English, or any language. That way, the communication is more and more, like streamlined. So that is with the text analytics and NLP. So this is the most, like uh, what to say, happening segments that's happening in the AI technology sector. Now, let's see why AI is so important. Why people say for college students, probably you guys should know something about AI and ML for a better future to get a job and things like that. Uh, if you see this chart in itself, only let's say AI and ML is more related to computer electronics and technology, of course. Even in that particular sector across the globe, if you see, only 36% of the companies have adopted this AML technology, and there is a huge 48% who are trying to use this. So what does this mean? This means there is a requirement for huge talent who are good at AI and ML, who can convert this 48% to the 36% part. So that means there will be a lot of jobs that will be generated around this AI ML segment. So if you look at the other segments, it's even worse. There is only 30% of usage, 12%. But if you see people who are trying to evaluate and move to the AI way, there's a huge chunk of it. So this is going to generate insane amount of job in the future. There's no doubt about it. So how does it look in India in itself? So India is no different. If you see in India also, the chart is just going upward. It's just growing exponentially the way things are churning out. India is also adopting a lot of AML based solutions. For instance, even a government is supporting AML projects to a large extent. This is something probably at your point, you guys don't know about it. There is something called as NASCOM. NASCOM is a body which kind of helps you, like it's an incubation center, which kind of tries to incubate your ideas. If you're good at A and ML, they put you in a AML stream and help, like bring your company, take your company to the next stage. Government also, there are multiple funding streams for this AML thing. They have allocated a huge for this. Any country across the world are very specific about building a lot of AML solutions. And at this point of time, if you see China, I would say is like by far ahead. They are doing a great job with AI and ML. They're even maybe probably they're as good or sometimes even better than what people are doing in the US. But India has a huge talent with respect to AI and ML, and there is a big future for people who are trying to venture out into this space for sure. Now, let's look at some of the myths. What generally people say is once AI is in the market, people will start losing job. That is actually not the case. I showed you a few example, the three different types of systems where we are at and what is the future. So what we are at is a system which is less efficient than a human brain. It can solve only a particular problem. That means it can only help a human being. It cannot replace a human being at this point of time for sure. And also, you would have heard about people losing jobs because of automation. Why did they really lose job is because they were not ready to learn new technologies. That is why they lost their job. There was a segment which was losing job. Let's say the manual testers, people who were doing testing manually, they lost job. People who were able to run this test using automation, they got jobs. Imagine if these people who were doing manual testing kept their like knowledge database updated. When if they had kept up with the trend, they wouldn't have lost their job. They would have still survived and continued with their job. So AI is not here to take anybody's job away. Gartner has made a important statement where it says Gartner is one of the world famous statistician company. They give a lot of statistics. So they say there will be about 18 lakh people who will lose job by 2020 because of AI. But what they also say is 23 lakh people or new jobs will be created. So if these 18 lakh people keep up with the latest trend, they'll be accommodated in this 23 lakh plus another 5 lakh extra job will be created. So what is more important at this point is keeping yourself updated with the trend. AI is simply not going to take anybody's job away. It's going to make life simple for people. Now let's talk about what companies are thinking. Most of people say with AI, companies don't care about individuals anymore, so they're just reliant on AI and they don't bother about the employees. That's not the case, because in the industry itself, when automation came into picture, lot of training was given to the manual testers to understand how automation works. Company gave them a lot of lead time. Only those people who did not adopt to this, who were not ready to learn the new technologies, were the ones who lost the job. So others who kept with the trend, they were still surviving and doing pretty well. So that's about the myths that's around the AI thing. So yeah, that's pretty much I had for the session. And if you guys have some kind of a question and answer session or something, feel free to go ahead, or however you want to take it forward from this point. Yeah, please. So you guys want to have some kind of a question and answer kind of thing, or how do you want to take this to the next level? If your students have some questions, or whichever way I can help at this point, I'm glad to.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Vivek.
Yeah, sir. Actually, one of our student Karthik has pinged in the chat box that Indian government AI, that
Okay, okay.
INDI. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can you please brief something about that?
I've not quite looked into that India AI dot in so far, but what I do know about is something called as Startup India. If you go to Startup India, there is a specific segment with respect to AI and machine learning. So if you have any interesting project or anything that's going on, you can actually propose it to the government and you can get some fundings also. So that's how our project got funded to the Mu Express that I was talking about. We had this interesting idea, but we wanted a lot of data which was mostly prevalent on the government sector. So we approached the government and we pitched for it. That's when they were also ready to give us the data, and they also backed the project completely financially. They were ready to invest as much as the project is asking for. So that is something I can give a quick brief about. Of course, I can let me look at the website and get back to you on that, probably through some kind of portal if you guys have in the future.
Sushma from final year CSC, sir. As a student, how can we start implementing AI in future?
Okay, so I would suggest starting in a very scratch, very simple way. Before that, you'll have to find your interest. AI, as I said, has a lot of things to do. Like you saw the text part, the voice part, and a lot of things. See what is your interest, and then start with very basic project. So it can be related to something, solving a very novel, like issue at your own campus. It can be something where you can solve a library related issue, or something related to your class attendance. See your interest and start with something very basic. Let's say your interest is with respect to voice, maybe, I don't know, let's say if it's voice, you can probably use it for the let's say attendance system, or when you're trying to, when a class is going on, probably whatever the uh, professor or the teacher is talking, you can convert it into a textual document and keep it for reference in the future. All this can be done very easily, at least by the student community, because solutions that is offered by Google is free for use for student community. So Google has voice translators that's available in almost 120, 130 languages, which also includes English, Tamil, and everything. So you can leverage one of these solutions and build some platform. You don't really have to reinvent the wheel. You don't really have to develop a solution which would do the entire conversion for you. You can make use of these things, which is absolutely free for the student community, and build something. That is where you can start developing your interest. And then you can move on to something more and more complex. I hope that kind of helped with the answer.
Thank you, sir. Hope she'll follow your guidelines. Sir, Karthik's query is, I have decided to put my career in ML as an ML engineer. As I have been learning ML for past 3 months and really tough to keep on self-taught, can you help me with some suggestions as I'm trying to get a job as an ML engineer?
Really tough to keep on self-taught. Can you help me? Okay, I'm not sure how we are learning this at this point of time, because any of this just learning doesn't help. You'll have to start applying it. So when I say start applying it, like the suggestion I gave to Shushma, you'll have to start doing it from a very basic thing, and then you'll have to progress thereon. Just learning, it does sound, theory part alone, it does sound pretty difficult, I would say, because of the lot of formulas and mathematical things that you have to work on. Probably you're looking at some of these regression things, trying to optimize the error part and things like that. It is quite complex to understand at that level. What you have to do is start implementing some basic solutions, and then if you're really looking for a job with respect to this, you can probably create a network around you over LinkedIn. That is something, again, very interesting that's happening these days in India, at least. So you network with the right people in different companies which is looking out for these kind of technologies, and you start presenting your solution on LinkedIn as short videos. You get noticed really quickly there. So let's say you have built a very simple thing which is happening very commonly now, trying to find out if a person is wearing a mask or not. For a college student who has done such a project and then posted on LinkedIn, it does attract a lot of people, because that's not a simple thing to do for a college student. That means the person has a lot of interest in this particular field, and you get noticed really quickly. So that is something you can try if that kind of helps your answer. And that's cool. If you're doing a practical thing, that's just the right way that you're taking. So all you have to do is you have to network with the right people, and then doing projects and keeping it yourself doesn't help. It has to reach out to the right people. So probably you'll have to put it on the LinkedIn, a short video like I told you, and you should also have the right connects, and these people connect quite easily like you connect with people on Facebook. It's LinkedIn, even though it sounds more professional, people do connect just like that when you send a friend's request. So the next only way to attract attention is posting these projects as short videos. It's not by sending them a message saying, I'm an ML specialist, I would like to get a job. It doesn't work that way. You have to gain their attention, which happens by doing things like this.
Thank you for your guidance, sir.
Sure, yeah.
Students, any more questions?
And one more thing, if you students are aware of the startup community in itself, I would say this is the right age for you guys to invest your time into something which you guys would like to do, because the startup environment in India is a lot more matured at this point. It is not how it used to be before, and there is good amount of support from the state as well as the central government. Invariably, who's in the government, it can be any party, but still there is a good drive by all these parties to try to push AML technology or the startup ecosystem at this point. So if you guys are interested, I would suggest find like-minded people within your own friends group, get guidance from your professors, or of course I can also give my time, whatever free time I have. You guys can get back to me also. Probably I'll share my email address with one of your professors or teachers. They can probably guide you through that. And yeah, this is the right time. So if you have the right kind of set of people, I guess you guys should venture into it, considering because of this COVID situation there is a lot of issues with job market and things like that. Once you have a good project, something that you guys have done, it's also easy to get a job in the future. Let's say your startup is not a success. Most of the startups also tend to fail. Let me put the ground reality to you guys. Out of 10 startups, only probably 1 or 2 becomes a success. 80% goes into failure. But what happens during that phase is you get to learn a lot of things in real time. You have a good network, and you can also show this to your next employer and then get a job. That makes the process even more simpler.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for guiding our students in the right way.
Sure. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude to those who have lightened the flame with us. Thank you so much, sir. Your enlightened speech filled each one of us with many ideas and knowledge. Thank you for spending your valuable time and enlightening us with many ideas and knowledge, and which has been given us many ideas to come up in future and enlighten our future too. Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Jansen's family, I would like to wish you all the best to reach even more greater heights. Thank you, sir, and thank you all.
Thanks everyone, and thanks for giving me this opportunity also. I'm glad that we have such platforms where we can connect during these situations too. Sure, you guys can get back to me through my email address for sure. I can do whatever it's possible from my side.
Thank you, sir, and thank you one and all here. We will wind up the session. Thank you once again.
Sure. Thank you.